Okay, so this is the Yeseda building, and the building I chose, of course, is the Warsaw Ghetto's Grovel, and this is not the church. There's another angle from which there's one building that remains in a state of destruction. And the idea is not only the destruction of the ghetto, but it symbolizes the destruction of the Jewish life.
What is the building?
What building is it? I don't know what building it is. I know that I've seen film and picture of the site, the way it looked.
Actually,
And there was a remnant of a building.
that might very well be the brick building that today is next to where the Great Synagogue was. Because that wall is still there. They never built down this entire lot empty and the presence of this brick wall. Near the Moshe Synagogue. Not the Moshe, near the Sodi Tower, the Peugeot Tower, it was down in the archives. And it's still there to this day that they left it in Warsaw as a sign of what it was. Okay, Ruben.
This is a multi-chromatic asynchronous.
Of what?
Unrepresentational.
Work in progress.
Huh?
Work in progress.
Yes, work in progress, right. I don't know, you're talking about atmosphere or weather, so I just don't know. It seems like, energy surrounded by blackness, kind of like the undoing of Tzimtzum, Anti-Tzimtzum. Tzimtzum was like the cosmic contraction, right. According to Kabbalah, Hashem drew away from the central point in the universe and created the world. I always thought like what surrounds it is Ein Sof, which some people think of as black. I always thought of it as white. I think the Ein Sof is black or white. And this is like black, okay? Opposite, like anti-Ein Sof.
So what's in the center there?
Energy,
And what was the energy?
The energy,
What are you depicting energy-wise there?
Energy is being squeezed in. The black is encroaching on it. It's to be made smaller.
So, you're talking about energy. That's representing, let's say, like Jewish victims of the Nazis in the black areas of the Nostrum that surround, that engulf them, or is that, or am I reading that potentially right, or something else?
Or it could be something more general, like.
Can I interpret his picture according to his introduction?
Yeah.
In Kabbalah, God is everything, which is what I would see as light, which is what Reuben said, and God had to make, let some say, had to make part of it sort of contract so that there'd be a whole empty hole, to have a blank place to stick the universe. And this is evil overcoming God, and if this was creation of the world, the color would be on the outside, and the darkness would be in the middle, which would be the empty lot where the world was created. And here the darkness overcame God and is squeezing away the power, and all that's left is the darkness.
That's nice, I like that.
That's good. That's a good interpretation.
Never knew that.
Or if you wanted to be upbeat and downbeat,
The light is pushing away.
Hana Senish, all the darkness cannot extinguish a single light.
Okay, the darkness is much more orderly, and the light is much more disorderly. Complete order is fastest step.
What do I do on this?
Movement is like.
I'm trying to understand how they decided.
How Lichora, all the colors are different. And look at this, there isn't one blue that's exactly the same as the other. And yet, these are the same, these are the same, these are the same.
They know which ones you need two of.
They are not.
That's not the same.
Amazing to think that
These are not the same. You're right, they're not. Okay? These
It's
are the
all
same.
thought out of what you need
These
two
are
of.
the same.
they are.
You need two for grass.
There's at least two different groups here.
But that's why
This is certainly different.
males are almost.
It's the same way in Crayola. Crayola gives you doubles of
No,
the
no, one of
colors
this
you
is
use
different.
more often.
They are
I
not
think that
doubled.
one's different. This one's different.
They're not doubled.
This is darker.
This is darker. This
There
is
are three different greens. And this?
It's two different shades. This one's lighter than this one.
Switch them and then see if it's the same. It's the light coming through the window.
same with me. Separate category. A chair. We're experiencing the Shoah, if you could kind of think of it like that. How would you depict it? A shoe, a tree, or a chair, or one of these containers that holds whatever, wine, water, juice, tea, and so on. Goblet, wine glass, bottle, cup. The black?
I was going to ask one black first.
Yeah, I was just thinking of doing that. The Kennedy Memorial.
And, I mean,
Tree, or what did you say, a tree, a goblet?
John Kennedy.
tree, a chair, a shoe,
I think it's the same thing.
goblet, wine glass, beverage
There's a
bottle,
variation
tea,
terms.
coffee cup. Ooh.
Yes, sir.
You could move to a different table or something if you want.
It's just
There
more
is-
options.
It's just four different types of like inanimate.
So it's just more options. There was the tree, the shoe.
A chair. You kind of chose some of those arbitrarily. A goblet, wine glass, beverage bottle, tea, or coffee cup, or something comparable.
And how,
And if one of these that you choose was experiencing the Shoah, if you can think of it in that way, how would you depict it?
Too many leaves in this tree.
How's that?
Can't find my color.
I'll make about it.
What's that?
Read the next two words, say what goes the first one
No?
I know that.
Oh, I got it. Oh.
Black again.
Don't mess with him. Don't mess with him.
He's got the 13-year-old older who's sick on you. Where did it happen to black again? There you go.
Thai boxing. Thai boxing is, let me put it this way.
You're not allowed to kill
Kick
your opponent.
boxing is
You're not allowed to kill your opponent.
He's not.
That's the only rule.
Thai food only with kicking and punching.
Kickboxing was made by
Yeah, they're
Americans
making
that wanted to
curtains.
water down kickboxing. They took out the elbows and they took out the low kicks and they.
Thai boxing is when you
I can't do it.
when you service out the commodities to be done. Thai labor is cheap. And when you send your products out to Thai to be boxed to be sold, that's Thai boxing.
I see. I did see
When you
some,
send your ties out to be boxed, it's called tie boxes.
Well, they had the news
I did see
broadcast
Thai
about 6
workers
months ago.
nearby
that
here.
you can no longer use ties in the shop in the West Bank.
College from
I think it's just a statement of fashion. You can no longer use ties. It's been pointed out as one.
Are shaped like Magin Davids. And they're different colors, meaning in different stages. There's some parts of the tree that are completely bare. And there are different stages. Some are, the leaves are dying, some are going out, but they're still rich in color. Some are still alive. And, all right, I guess.
This is a subterranean tree.
Bruce wanted to do that with my building.
Yes, I
So
did.
you- instead you
I
did
said
it with
that
your
every
tree?
right, subterranean tree.
And?
That never pokes its head up off the ground. Of course, you can't live down there, but,
What's the little black?
what, like this? This is a
Brown.
knot.
So,
What?
A knot.
Oh.
can you explain further, you depicted a subterranean tree. How is that experiencing Stella? Which is how the exercise was described.
Right. That was the only place I was safe.
Underground.
If you were a tree experiencing the Holocaust, you would be above ground? Probably not.
Waiting.
Oh, me? My most disappointing, sad moment as a Jewish educator in Holocaust lessons happened probably about 15 years ago, when at that time there wasn't a March of the Living, and nobody, like almost nobody had ever been to Poland and seen anything. And I had one kid in my class who had gone to Poland with a USY trip, which like we didn't usually get kids that had been in Poland like we do now, and there was no March of the Living, and the USY was one of the only groups running this trip. And he says to me, I was just in Auschwitz. I said, oh my God, this is amazing. I you know, obviously was never there. I have a student who can now enlighten us, who saw the places where everything we're learning about happened. Would you please share with everyone? He says, I can summarize the whole Holocaust, everything. He says, I'm waiting for this moment. I can summarize it all in one picture. And he said, they took us to Auschwitz, they took us to these rooms where they have storage of all the things they were taken from the people, and then there was they had a room of glasses and a room of suitcases, and then there was a room of shoes. And he says, and my educator took us and showed us this, and what we all agreed was that there was this gigantic mound of shoes, and they were all brown, but on top was one red shoe, and that, he says, for me that represents the Holocaust, that red shoe represents the survival of the Jewish people. And for me, that sickened me to my stomach. I didn't want to insult the student, but the child that wore the red shoe that was on top of all the brown shoes was gassed and cremated, and here's his ashes next to the shoe. And I think it was a cop-out that a lot of Jews, especially Jewish educators, like to do when dealing with the Holocaust, to find simple cliches. Oh, the red shoe, brown shoes are a death, but the red shoe represents how the Jewish people survived. And you walk away from Auschwitz and you feel good, and you put on a Yizkor button, and everything is great. And for me, that's how you set up the next Holocaust to happen. So,
Are you saying that
the
you
educator
don't allow as an educator, you don't allow the student to feel the fullness of the pain? If you try to sweeten it, when
No,
it's not appropriate.
it's not about pain. If you don't intellectually wrestle with what is the reason it happened and how do we ensure it doesn't happen again, and I'm not saying you have to accept my answer, but if you don't intellectually, if someone comes to me and says the Holocaust represents, we all have to live in America and teach the Goyim to be mensches and to love other people and not to kill people, that's not my answer, but that's an acceptable answer. I will spend the rest of my life educating my next door neighbors and the world, and that's why I can't live in Israel. Somebody else might say, my father said every Jew at 22. Every Jew has to have a gun, every Jewish Hebrew school should teach kids to shoot, and Jewish kids should know how to protect themselves, and that was my father taught.
But would you do that at the shoes?
What's that?
I've been in that room. Would you do that in that room?
that boy who was in my class, his educator took him to the shoes, looked at that, and pushed onto them he droshed there that the red Jewish people, and everybody walked out, wow, I saw this red shoe and that represents, and that pisses me off because that red shoe was worn by a kid that was gassed and thrown in the
What bothers you, that
cremated.
it's illegitimate to turn that dead kid into a symbol of survival?
I'm more than probably as much as anybody else here, if not more, believe in poetic license and artistic license, but there's a certain point when you cross the borderline and a red shoe that was worn by a child that was massacred cannot be a symbol of how the Jewish people survived.
Better like the Steven Spielberg thing with the red jacket. It was simply another one of the, in the end, the girl wearing the red jacket. In the end, that red jacket
It was a symbol of Schindler becoming a human, courtesan, and all of a sudden these are not just
I think there really was a
objects
girl in a red coat.
Yeah, she
Not everybody else was in black and white.
her red coat was cast among the other red coats.
and she's dead.
She's cast,
Exactly, right.
So your problem is how he used it. If you-
My problem, I'm not angry at it.
One person at a time, please.
I'm not angry at a 16-year-old, a 17-year-old boy.
The educator.
I'm angry at the educator.
Okay,
And,
but I want to clarify. Is your problem how the educator used that
yes.
spot?
Yes.
It's not what the educator said.
No, it's what the educator.
would have found
This is what
an
the
appropriate
educator said he
symbol
objects to.
to say, all this happened to us, but we survived, that would have been okay for
Or
you.
if the educator would have said, everybody look at what you see, tell me what you think, if an educator went there and did this pula and sat down and said, everybody take a piece of paper and draw something and then let's talk about what it means, it's an object that, let people there. And then if you're an educator, you're not just supposed to be pulling stuff out of people, you're supposed to be teaching something. What's your message? And here the educator took the shortcut and didn't want to get into deep questions. How could America let it happen? How could the Christians do it to us? How could we let it happen to ourselves? Why were we still living in Jabotinsky told everybody to get out. Why are we still there? You got to Anne Frank and Bettelheim, when we have that discussion, I don't care what answer a kid gives me, as long as the kid's willing to do it. Where I get angry is if a kid will say to me, can't touch Anne Frank. That's a holy. If you say to me, no, I think Bettelheim is wrong. I think that Anne Frank is a lovely human. I think she cared. I think she did that. I think do that. I think she is a model of heroism and not just of a victim. I don't agree with the kid personally, but that's a legitimate answer. But I have kids who will say, we can't talk about Anne Frank. She's, the saint of godliness, and we can't touch her. And that's not having the courage to wrestle. And that's taking the shortcut out, and that's setting up the next Holocaust. And that's that kind of mentality.
By the way, too, the Dutch knives. Kibbutz Yavne were his brothers, who were among the people who went around and paid going to take care of the Jews. They helped organize the whole thing. They told people not to do what their father did, because they wanted to hide people in smaller numbers in homes and they, to this day, they can't pretend, but they, to their dying day, really believed that, like you're saying, the injustice that was done to those who really did what they needed to do to save themselves by her becoming the hero in everybody's eyes, because that family did exactly what they were told not to do in order to survive. And they got caught. And all these other people that they had done got caught. And they all ended up making it through. So that's what the rebellion was about.
By the way, the sun represents, that's my series, of sun, but that the idea that this educator was trying to say that there's some kind of light that comes out of this darkness, and this is the light that's shining on the ashes that happened and made it, everybody be able to see, so they could throw the Jews in the gas chambers easily enough. So it's the same kind of.
Whenever I go to, wherever I see these images of the shoes or whatever, lampshades, I always try and read the text. I always try and read the text. Because I suppose I'm very connected to what Yossi said. On one hand, I'm looking for some sort of meaningful image, some message. On the other hand, it's a piece of nonsense, because the whole point is that the Sefer Torah was completely not looked upon as having any value, and therefore it's completely random which piece of text is there. So I have a friend, I'm also influenced, I have a friend.
Can we see a picture?
Oh, it's Brit Ben Tarim and then just stam pasuk. But actually, it's not. But basically, it's a Hot Ha'sharon, which is like the classic example of the pasuk. But how do you make any meaning of that pasuk? I have a friend who made a film 10 or 12 years ago about the Himmat Code, a sort of prophetic film, and in which the disengagement. He made it over 10 or 12 years ago, and it was an award-winning film at the time. And the film ends with a scribe being removed by the army from his home, and crying, and the tears fall on the Sefer Torah and wipe out the letters of the covenant of Brit Ben. He happens to be writing the verses of Brit Ben Tarim. It's slightly kitsch, but very strong. So that's the sort of verses that I took there. So on one hand, there's like the paradox of this is the verse of covenant being picked out. On the other hand, it's this idea that it can get wrapped and nobody cares.
And a completely unrelated question. You live in Scotland, somewhere.
There's some
or other.
truth in that.
Where you live?
Glasgow.
Guess I should have guessed the Glaswegian accent.
I'm used to this.
What?
He's actually been modifying his accent so we can understand.
I live in Aberdeen.
My favorite.
Lived in Aberdeen?
5 months back.
Logs. That's right. You see, what happened was,
And they burned them.
is the whole idea is to chop down the tree. But while chopping down the tree, you make use of the different pieces of the tree. And so the logs can be used for firewood, the logs can be used for building things or whatnot. But the bottom line is that what can't be used is just going to be trashed. And so this is the little bits that couldn't be used. And once they can't be used, so see if here you have a piece that can be used, they'll be used, but once they can't be used, then they're just going to be burnt up, and the ashes are going up and coming back down. And of course, so now you're left with the stump. The only thing left is to pull out the roots, but they never got around to pulling out the roots. There were too many trees in the forest. They didn't get to that. And of course, there's always a possibility that something can grow again. Might not happen, but the possibility is there, depending on the type of tree. If you don't chop it down totally.
The green? The two green,
Yeah, it's the beginning shoots. They'll either make it or they won't. I have a tree that I chopped down a number of times and it kept giving shoots back. And I kept putting poison on it until the poison finally got to the roots, and now it won't do that anymore. And so, that's...
Let's go, Pablo.
Okay. I drew a tree because a tree is defenseless. Again, can't move, it depends on man and nature. These are supposed to be two black lightning bolts, one cutting the trunk, one hitting the roots. The tree is crying, those are supposed to be teardrops. The ends of the branches are supposed to be open mouths that are screaming mercy, and ain't no mercy.
That's why there's an X.
it says like orange, these are the teardrops?
So I couldn't find something else, I was white, I tried white, but the white on white, it's supposed to be teardrops, yeah.
It's getting better.
The lightning bolt on the right looks like the snake from Gezer.
It's like the final scene of Braveheart.
Color in line, it's kind of upbeat, colorful, decorative kind of image. Really the explanation.
It wasn't meant that way. Just couldn't find it.
I had a really nice snake beating stick, but I lost it. It scared me.
You did fine.
That's why we're high school teachers.
That's why what?
That's why we're high school teachers. We can flow with it.
Comments, feedback, critical, open to anything.
What's it for?
What's it for?
Yeah, what a goal does it accomplish?
actually, the inspiration for doing this came from a workshop I attended at Yad Vashem in '99. A woman my age, parents are survivors. She lives in London. She does what's called performance poetry and Holocaust education. And she does audiences.
Leah.
You know that? Yeah. And I was moved by what she said. I had already been guest teaching here and there for 6 years. She said people, you know, they learn about the Shoah in a variety of ways: movies, TV programs, reading books, sometimes by themselves, with classes and groups. And she said no one addresses how to how the aftermath of especially if you're doing something that's, let's say, like it's a one-time shot. You watch Schindler's List, and everybody goes on to the next class. There's no processing for it at all. So I tried her poetry exercises several times the last few years, and I kept on thinking, I'm not an English major, I'm not an English teacher, I don't do poetry. Even though she describes the stuff as like poetry for people who don't know anything about poetry or don't even like poetry, I thought I ought to do something comparable. Since I'm an artist and I can speak the language of art making, why not try something similar with audiences where I would get them to draw responses. So whether it's, I actually got into a discussion with the German professor at Pacific Lutheran University afterwards. She said she thought it was not art therapy. And while I didn't literally describe it as art therapy in the description of it, I put in the class section of my website, we got into this discussion, almost not quite an argument, but she thought I needed to redefine how I call it. And then I got into discussion with a couple of friends in Seattle about whether such an exercise is therapeutic or not. How people do adult well, let me ask you this. Do you think this is helpful for you or not? In terms of, having watched my Under the Wings of God slide class, to follow it with this sort of exercise, do you think it's useful? Not useful?
What do you mean useful? Useful to us as teachers?
For teachers or as a tool for...
I think it presents an interesting tool that could have its place with certain... in effect with all age groups and all type of kids, but I think it's another tool that could be helpful in certain times and certain places with certain kids, and again, depending on the group and where and what their needs are and their times here, but kids need time for processing is a very important thing. We all do it when there may be a verbal level in classes, thinking in a verbal level, and I think this is another form of processing that not only doesn't hurt to use it, I think it could open up. And again, while a lot of kids are not good at art and won't be able to, come up with maybe a beautiful drawing, one, the act of doing it might at least lead to words that they can express. And two, just like there's a lot of kids who can't do art, there's a lot of kids who can't speak. And so I think it's, when I come back to class and I ask the kids, how do you feel about the Holocaust? And then there's, 10 kids who make beautiful speeches and you cry your eyes out from their words. And then there's one kid who can't talk. A lot of times we've seen that just like, for instance, we do here a Zionist seminar with projects where part of the project is they have to do a Zionist thinker and make a skit and then also like a poster. So they're always, I don't know if this is scientific, but I have a feeling, from my experience, that the kid who usually makes the poster is an outsider, usually in a lot, like they're an artist personality, they're not the typical type of kid usually. They're often not good at words, but they come up with this like gorgeous poster. So, maybe, there's other kids like that who also have the right, we have to, it's a way to touch even unique groups beyond the fact that for everybody it could be, an interesting thing.
I think I think that This would not be good, however, as the only response.
For a given class?
And that's why, I don't know if you called it therapeutic or who called it therapeutic.
Well,
but
I
it's-
was
I don't think therapy is what's called
Yeah.
for.
I'm sorry.
I think that, I go back to what Jesse said before. If, out of the drawings that students make, then you can use that to have them discuss issues,
Right.
to come away with thoughts, to
Mhm.
come away with conclusions, that's okay. If, when I was last year, at this time actually, I was with a March of the Living group. And it really got on me after a while. Every place we went, and every day, several times, I had to hear terrible Holocaust poetry. It's like, you can't commit someone...
Or terrible
No,
by kids?
no, no, if a kid writes it, no, actually, if a kid writes it, that's the kid's feeling, and they don't expect the kid to be Robert Frost. I'm talking about some American that wrote something, and since it's about the Holocaust, all our art criticism is suspended, because it's like criticizing the Holocaust. If you criticize the art, and it gets printed and reprinted and used and used and used, and that's all they did. And what about, you know, yes, emote, get out, and then start to think about what you're feeling and where it leads you and what issues it raises. And that they didn't do. And that's why this could be a tool to raise issues, but alone, it would make you feel you did something when you didn't do anything.
Well, I wouldn't want to have it done, at least the way I've set this up like this, whether it's with high school students or teachers or whoever, adults, younger ages, that the discussion is an integral part of how I think the workshop ought to be. Without if it's drawing without a discussion, there's no workshop. So, is that what you're saying, that it has to have a...
No, but what I would do, if I were, you're not teaching Holocaust, you're giving us a tool. But what I would have done is, I don't know, I'm looking at Reuben, so we'll say, Reuben is raising questions of